Well, welcome back to the channel, everybody. I'm refilming the intro because it looks like I filmed 32 minutes and 56 seconds of footage without having my mic on. So we're going to be doing a little voiceover. But what the video is about today is I'm going to be maintaining one of my vices. It's a Morgan Model 138. It's the vise that I use almost daily, and I need to maintenance it. Here I am showing a 4.5-inch Craftsman that I use weekly, but it doesn't see as much use. It will be a future project, but I've grown to like the way it looks, and I don't know what I'm going to do with it. It works fantastic as is. This is my 6-inch Wilton. I have done a full restoration on this one. It also gets used weekly, but this is the star of the show today. This is my Morgan 138. I use this almost daily. This is the project that I was hoping to put out today, but work has been crazy and I didn't get a chance to finish it. I don't know about y'all. I have multiple projects going on all the time. I have projects over on the other table. I'm currently hanging 2 axes, and I'm always working on something, probably like everybody else. So I'm going to get into this, show you what I do to maintenance and clean my vices. I always, after use, I always wipe them down, brush them down, and clean them off. But I'm going to go a little further in depth today. Sorry that everything's choppy. Like I said, I forgot to turn my mic on. Getting a look at it. This, I want to say hard use. I'm not beating on it or anything, but because I use it all the time, I get metal shavings, a lot of sawdust, a lot of wood chips inside the body. And so I'm just going to pull everything apart, give it a deep clean, and maintenance it for y'all today. Checking, there's still some grease on here. What I normally do, I don't have an air compressor in the shop, but I have a little blower for keyboards on computers and a parts brush. I will always, after use, blow everything and brush everything off. And I'm just demonstrating that here. That blower works really great for the task, and the brush gets in where the things are kind of stubborn. Just blowing it off, detailing it. Here, I'm getting inside the vise, getting the grease out because I plan on sticking some brushes in there. Getting all the old grease out, and I'm going to put some new grease in. Wiping everything down. I wipe the body of the vise with a greasy rag. It doesn't matter to me. It will help protect it. Here I decided to go ahead and pull the jaws. I don't always do that. Once every 6 months on this vise, because I use it all the time, I completely take it apart and maintenance it. But it's been a good 6 months. So I decided to go ahead and pull the jaws. They're dry. I have only really used oil on them before. Wiping any excess off right now. I did find a little bit of rust had set in behind. One thing I noticed too was, I'm glad I checked because the screws were a little bit loose. So just check your equipment all the time. It's almost completely dry. I'm taking a steel wool and getting some of the rust off that had started to set in. It's in my shop, and huge temperature and humidity swings. So even though I wipe it down all the time, I don't get behind the jaws. So that's why I'm taking it apart and maintaining it, just checking everything out. This is a 2-part lube that I use. It is 70% motor oil and 30% grease. I think it's just bearing grease or something in that nature. And I'm going to put just a light coat on here. I'm going to spread it around here in a minute for y'all. Like I said earlier, I had just used oil in this part of the vise before, but I'm going to go ahead and use this grease and oil mixture. I've used it on the bearing surfaces inside the slide and on the lead screw. And earlier you saw that that was still there. So I wanted to make sure that this part of the vise is protected. I'm taking a little bit of excess off of the body and putting it on the jaws here. Make sure everything's nicely coated. Just applying a thin layer, not going too heavy on it. I don't think it's absolutely needed in this application. I did put some grease in the screw holes so that the screws would get covered. And that's something else that I'm checking here, is I want to make sure that nothing gets frozen up. Part of maintaining your tools, making sure that they stay in good working condition. I don't want the screws to get bound up and rusted where I can't get them out and damage the vise later when I do try to take it apart. Here, I'm just giving it a good measured 25 foot-pounds. That's a joke, I have no idea. Putting some of this 2-part grease on the slides so that the friction is reduced as I'm moving the dynamic jaw in and out. All the bearing surfaces, just wiping it down, a good thin layer. I'm also reaching up inside the body of the vise to make sure that everything inside of it has a nice coat. Here I'm taking some steel wool and a rag, and I'm going over all the parts. There was a little bit of rust on the lockdown handles, so I'm taking care of that. And when I say a little bit of rust, it was barely even noticeable until I got up on top of it and actually checked it out. It wasn't something that I would say, oh gosh, that's really bad, because I do wipe it down every time I use the vise. Here I'm going to take all the excess grease off of the slide because I don't want it on my workbench. Just wiping everything down, getting any excess debris off of here that the blower and parch brush didn't get. And I'm getting down inside the dynamic jaw. I notice here that there was some rust in this area. Here I'm just taking some ballistol and spraying everything down because, like I said, there was some rust, and that's a hard area to get to, and hopefully it will protect. Just continuing to brush everything off. Anything that I wasn't able to, well, this actually, I'm sorry, this is the first time I'm actually cleaning this part. So yeah, just brushing everything off, getting the loose debris off. I'm gonna flip it over and do the same thing on this side. Just simple maintenance. Here there was a little bit of what I thought was rust, but it's just wear. Taking some 4/0 steel wool and just lightly going over the entire body of the vise like I did, well, the dynamic part of the vise like I did with the body. Now I'm showing y'all here that the screw, you can see a groove in it and you can feel the groove, and that's because, like I said earlier, the screws had come loose. Now I remember when I first got this vise, I pulled it completely apart and checked everything and did a preservation on it. That was present when I got the vise, so they had come loose before and somebody didn't check it and had damaged the screws. Thankfully the threads were okay. I'm just putting a little bit of grease on the screw here instead of putting it in the hole like I did on the body, and then I will put it all back together. Here took me a little while. It's hard to try to show everything you're doing so the camera can see it when you can't, but I'm just putting the jaws back on, making sure that the screws are nice and snug, giving it that, you know, calibrated 25 foot-pounds, making sure that they're not going to come loose again. Just continue to wipe all that excess grease off because I put grease on the inside of the jaws and on the back of the dynamic. Make sure nothing's oozing out. Anything that has, just wiping it down. And again, I'm not worried about getting on the body of the vise because that's going to help protect it. I'll flip it over here, and I lost some footage, just like I lost the audio. I'm checking the lead screw, make sure there's no debris in it, no metal shavings or wood shavings. And it's one good thing about this style of vise, the lead screw's covered, so it's less likely to get debris in there. Got the vise all back together now, just wiping it down, making sure everything's functioning correctly, and I'm taking that same greasy, oily rag and wiping down the metal plate that the vise is mounted to help protect from any corrosion on it. Just wiping the whole area down, making sure everything's clean and lubed nicely. I tried my hardest to find some kind of documentation to kind of date this vise, and I didn't have any luck. I did buy this from a collector, and from his research, he was telling me his best guesstimate was this vise is probably from the 1930s. Now, Morgan was founded in 1891. I did find catalog 125. It was the oldest catalog I could find, and it's listed in that catalog. The Morgan 138 has been called a coachmaker's vise, but Morgan actually advertised it as a sheet metal vise. It is 82 pounds, 4.5-inch jaws, and the opening is 10 inches. That is the same opening as my Wilton 600. As of catalog 125, this vise sold new for $45. I have seen them go anywhere from $150 to over $600 online. While Morgan was established in 1891, they were bought out by Milwaukee Tool Company in 1973. Well, hopefully I didn't butcher the voiceover on the video. I appreciate y'all stopping by, checking out the short little video about maintaining my vise. Said it's extremely important to take care of your tools. If you take care of them, they'll take care of you. Till next time, guys, get out there, save something from being forgotten, and live a big life.